Yeah. I love my HBCU. And boy, I love it, love it. I love it, love it. I love my HBCU. And man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. Man, I hope my team they won. Yeah. I hope my team they won. Yeah. I tune into the HBCU Sports Lab to see if my team won or lost. If they lost, I'm quiet as a mouse. But if they won, keep tab. I'ma do the dab, yeah. Dr. Cavil, he know what he be talking about. Mike and Charles, they know what they be talking about. They compress the analytic data with this hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they won or lost, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
All right. Welcome in, Brian. How are you doing, sir?
What up? What up? Good to see you, Big Mike. Good to be in.
It's June 25th, 2 days after the summer solstice. Days are still long, days are still hot. So, and we got some hot news to share with everybody.
There you go.
So welcome to this episode of Inside the HBCU Sports Lab radio show and podcast. The show covering the sporting media diaspora, all things HBCU sports for institutions large and small, from NAIA to NCAA. We share insights and information on the HBCU sports culture and the HBCU athletic aesthetics to facilitate the story of HBCU athletic program, issues, and of course, the business of HBCU sports. Now, normally your host is Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, or the one and only Chuck Charles, a.k.a. Chuck Bishop. But tonight, you are in store for a treat. I will be the host with the most, Big Mike Washington, up in the house with my man, Brian Buford. Brian, say hello to the folks.
Hey, I'm doing well. I'm doing well, Mike. Thanks for, I thought I was just going to be producing tonight, but, it's like, hey, I'm always down to chop it up in the lab.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. So, because we ask for class participation from everybody. So, as usual, we film from our studios, KCOH 1230 radio, but we bring folks far and near. We are all in the family. So, we have a lot going on today, lots of news, some coaching changes, some basically controversial topics that have really blown up the internet. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, so I'll get into it. So, the first one that comes to mind is this thing. Maybe you've seen it on the internet, you've seen it, Facebook, you've seen it on IG. But basically, USA Track and Field gives an explanation as to why Norfolk sprinter Kai Cole was disqualified. Now, Cole, you remember, posted a 10.03, or it was quoted in other places or a 10.05 in a 100-meter dash, but was cited as ineligible for the trials. There was hoopla. There was like, why did this happen? So here's the statement, and I'll read, and I want to make sure that I give this justice. Beginning with the 2023 USA Track and Field Outdoor Championships, the USA Track and Field implemented qualifying criteria. I'll put quotations around that. Qualifying criteria by which athletes now must achieve a legal mark in a United States or USA Track and Field sanctioned meet and or an event which appears on the World Athletics, also known as WA Global Calendar, to qualify for the championships and Olympic trials. That being said, this updated requirement has been posted under qualifying information on the pages, and it lists all of the sources. So, I don't know what the clear reason for this. He clearly had a very good qualifying time. It was all on Instagram, on Twitter, on IG. There was lots of feedback. So, what are your thoughts at first glance of this article and of this news? And I don't know if you had a chance to get any of the hoopla and hearsay on social media, but want to get your take on this, Brian.
Yeah, we talked about it. Myself and Jamie Walker talked a little bit about it on Sunday. At first, my first thought was, "Uh-oh, the MEAC effed up." I didn't run to the mountaintop and scream it loud like some people. I did kind of say there are some explanations. We needed to dig a little deeper, ask more questions. But then one thing that became apparent I had a couple people send me some DMs and kind of let me know, and I even looked into this myself. The MEAC championships was not the only opportunity Kai had to
Right.
qualify. So I think, yes, he had his best time of his entire track season, I believe, at the MEACs. Unfortunately, there were other opportunities to qualify, and he ran a 10-4 at the next week or or maybe 2 weeks later at the NCAA first round, which was a sanctioned event. Unfortunately, the 10.24 was not enough. Obviously, it's not as fast as the 10.05. So, you know, it really you take it all with a grain of salt. And here's the thing: the MEAC wasn't the only conference to not have their conference championships
That's that's
sanctioned.
correct.
Which I think if that had been the case, more tears would have been shed. But look, the SWAC didn't have theirs. If you want to just look at HBCU comparables, but then also the SEC, which God knows they got tons of athletes that I'm sure qualified with other events. So while and there were some conferences that did have there. So while you feel bad and it's unfortunate for Kai, but it wasn't his only opportunity. I could see it if it was your only shot. You know what I'm saying, Mike? It's like
Yep.
if that was the only meet you had a chance to qualify and that one wasn't sanctioned, I get it. But it wasn't. And so it's tough.
Yeah, yeah, and here's the deal. I had the same. I was like, ah, here we go. They stepped on the MEAC once again, and I was ready to raise. My hand was on the flagpole. I was ready to raise that flag, and like you, I started digging.
Right.
Two things stood out when they said qualifying. Notice I said earlier qualifying sanctioned meets.
Mm-hmm.
It really is a wider net now. And as you mentioned, he had the opportunity to participate in one of those events. I think
Right.
there was actually one or two more events after the championships that he could have. So that's why I say qualifying meet. The second thing, and more importantly, is there were 1,500 entries for the Olympic trials. I asked, how many people are actually trying for the Olympics? 1,500. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And of this, he was not the only one. There were 15 to 20 other folks that had this issue and were all denied by
Yes.
the appeals subcommittee. Either their time didn't qualify in the wrong place or whatever, but it has to be. The rules are clear, so I can't say that that it was something against the MEAC here. Although you hear a lot of back and forth or see a lot of back and forth on social media. You see it on Instagram. I saw some comments saying, oh, that's messed up. They could have took it as a secondary qualify. No, that's not the agreement.
Right.
So we have to understand that the rules are the rules, and these rules are clear. There are some rules I'm not in favor of, but in this case, they're pretty clear.
Yeah, they are, and I know I had to let me see. I had a slideshow which we used from the other day that has the MEAC statement, and I think in reading the MEAC statement on the whole situation, the last couple sentences kind of says it all.
Yeah.
They're disappointed, and they want to ensure that future events are sanctioned, but they're moving forward, And we're not going to talk about this no more. So, kudos to the MEAC for kind of saying, hey, sorry, but okay, this is really all we could do, and we're moving on. And you should too.
Exactly. We're done. No further comments.
Yeah, we got to get ready for football. I'm sorry. No, I'm joking about that part, but
So having said that, moving to our next topic, as I see you have that ridiculous snake in the back of your head to that university with the ridiculous whatever you did with your hand. They've been in the news recently.
Don't go there. Don't go there. What else is happening in there? Oh man, jeez.
So
go ahead.
In case you've been under the rock, or you just haven't known, whatever. FAMU's basketball coach, they have a coach, but they don't have a coach. Is that fair?
That is a good summation. There you go.
I'm trying to sum it in the most simplistic of terms. But they have a coach, but they don't have a coach. And if you've been, on a rock or whatever, you'll realize that the board decided to hold up basically issuing what was a 3-year extension on the men's basketball coach. So there's a lot to unpack with this. I thought it was quite simple. I was like, what happened? Something was real, but the school's board of trustees voted to table a contract agreement for Patrick Crary II, who was hired basically in April until August, as reported by a number of sources. But you saw kind of the clip. Unfortunately, hold up, wait a minute. There have been some things. The board has decided to table that. There have been a number of other things. There have been noted that coaching out of season has come up to question. It's not a violation of NCAA policy. However, he's been serving as a volunteer. He's logged a couple of hours. There is a relationship that could step into the Title IX and other requirements. So I think the board is wanting to look at it. The president can still sign him under a 1-year contract because it doesn't need board approval, but you kind of wonder where this is going and kind of why this happened. Why did the fact that he was doing volunteer camps just now surface when it's time to give the young man a 3-year contract? That's the biggest question that comes to people's mind. And your thoughts on that?
This is loaded, Mike. I'm still trying to put the timeline together, and a lot of that we will get into talking about on tomorrow's O&G Strike Zone, right here on the Black College Sports Network. But here's what I can sort of shed light based on kind of your summary. Obviously, the previous coach, Coach Robert McCullum, his contract ends June 30th. Okay. Now, he was notified back in, I believe, maybe late March, early April, that he wasn't going to be given a new contract. So it wasn't like he was technically fired, but he's still under contract. Now, every school and state has its policies regarding that kind of thing. So we went out and hired a new coach. The AD, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, she found a new coach. I'm excited for the new coach. I thought it was, I thought it was a good hire for where FAMU is as a basketball program. It was a great hire. And he started on August 17th, had the introductory press conference. Okay. Now, obviously, yes, the what's usually the policy with FAMU, and maybe this is probably because of the state of Florida, the contract has to go to the board of trustees to be approved. Yes. Usually that doesn't happen instantly on the day of the contract being signed. It usually takes maybe a month or whatever for that to happen. Okay. And so in the interim, he was given this voluntary contract so that he could go about the business of fielding a team, recruiting for new players, because once the season ended, Mike, the transfer portal hopping. I mean, there were a lot of FAMU players, along with other players throughout the SWAC, that jumped in the portal. Matter of fact, at least a half a dozen basketball players jumped in the portal. Okay. Some graduated, some jumped in the portal. So when the coach comes in, obviously you have to decide if there's anybody that's in the portal that you want to retain or want to offer a new scholarship. And here's another thing, Mike, people don't understand. Scholarships are a year-by-year thing. This is not a 4-year contract when you get a scholarship. It's a year-by-year contract agreement. So he's coming in the last month of the school year. And I think what's in the article, cited not only on HBCU Sports, HBCU Game Day, the Tallahassee Democrat, all people who did a great job of kind of summarizing these things. He basically, at the time that he notified players that he was going in a different direction or wanting to keep guys, was about the last week in April. Well, guess what? That gives kids more time to do. If you weren't sure, guess what? You can make a decision to go play elsewhere. The coach had a chance to watch the film. We were 6-23, Mike. Second worst program in the SWAC, next to who? Valley. So it didn't take long for coach to look at the film and see what he wanted to see from certain guys. And he did make a decision to retain 3 players and offer scholarships to 3 guys. I actually talked to him this past weekend, and I like the 3 that he decided to keep. And I heard the reason why he kept them, and I agreed 100% with the metrics. And he had 7 new guys coming in. So fast forwarding here through all of what I was saying, his contract was supposed to start July 1. Okay. The first day of summer session was yesterday. The first day of summer workouts was yesterday. This that the trustees were supposed to do was supposed to really be, I think, a formality. And so that he could get started officially. Now, one of the things, Mike, is a little side note, which a lot of people don't know. The coach was supposed to receive some compensation. We talked about this last week. He was supposed to receive some money from the boosters. For the 2 months that he had been representing the program, representing the university, out recruiting. He didn't get none of that. He hasn't got any of that, but none of that got talked about yesterday. But anyway, moving forward, I in short, Mike, I feel this was really politicized due to 2 things. One, there are members of that board of trustees who do not like the athletic director. And I think they have without saying it as much, they don't have confidence in her ability or her knowledge to do her job effectively. Because some of the questions that they raised, it's like, huh? And she clearly, I thought, in the process, talked about those things. The second thing was, there was a influential pastor whose son was a walk-on with the team, who voiced his displeasure with how things went on. Now, again, he was a walk-on, Mike, a preferred walk-on with the previous coach. And that parent, that influential person, probably knows some people on the board of trustees. And he chose to send a letter in as a parent, which, Mike, you've been a parent. Your sons are in athletics. I don't know if you've ever sent a letter to the coach or tried to talk to the coach. Maybe you didn't, but guess what? I, as a coach, have dealt with parents who do.
No, there have been a few instances where where I didn't send the letter. I didn't just send a letter. So.
Right. You may have done what he did, which is this pastor actually went and made phone calls, tried to go actually talk to the coach. And it's like, really? It's the new coach. And so I guess those conversations didn't go well, to say the least. And you can read the articles and get all the tea. But so I think this was very politicized, Mike, and it's sad because a lot of these same board members were upset about the recent news of that $237 million alleged gift. A lot of these same people were upset about the negative press, but then they turned around and created the negative press in this particular case because of personal feelings, in my opinion.
And here's the thing, right? I read 3 different sources. I read, HB Sports, I read Game Day, I read the Tallahassee paper, and if you read the Tallahassee paper very carefully, and if you read between the lines, this is, gets back to what I do. You'll see that they're going back to your point that there's a little pushback I detect. This is just Mike Washington. It's not documented in black and white. It's not law, but there's a little pushback because the Board of Trustees had a concern regarding him coaching student athletes. Not an illegal thing. Okay. They said it was timing. It was before this was approved or that had happened or whatever. That's not against the rules. So who speaks up? Athletic director Tiffany Dawn Sykes noted that what I just said, this is not a big deal. Why are we making a big deal?
Not uncommon. Yes, it happens it happens in major programs, bigger than FAMU and bigger than everybody in the SWAC. Yes.
So not knowing the background like you do, I can detect there's a little push and push going. But this actually, I talked to some of the folks here in Prairie View and Texas Southern alumni, and they were like, that's the same kind of stuff that happened with Fred McNair, basically, with that stuff. And they were like, here we go again, just another school. But I think it's a shame that it was politicized this much and we made a big deal because if you look at it, we made a mountain out of a molehill with this one.
Yeah, and I tell you what's disappointing and sad, Mike, is this coach is really in a tough spot. Coach Crairy's in a tough spot because he's essentially been working for free over the last 2 months. You've got 7 new players to FAMU starting classes yesterday, starting workouts. You got a roster of 10 guys. Now, I don't know if you read in that article, even the president, Dr. Larry Robinson, said he has the ability to hire the coach on a 1-year contract so that the man can hopefully start getting paid for his job. That is also an interesting, that creates an interesting dynamic. But think about the situation of being the person as a coach who you've got players who are counting on you. You brought these kids in, right? They're coming to play for you at this university. You technically don't have a contract. You have a family, wife, kids. And I use this, I've said this as I've talked to people over the last 2 days, Mike. I keep saying this. What if some NBA franchise, because he's pretty well connected. I mean, the coach, he knows some people. What if an NBA franchise offered him an assistant coaching job? Maybe he is the last assistant on the staff at like $300,000 starting out a year. What is his imagine being in that spot, Mike, to be, hey, I don't have a contract, but I have as a coach, I got kids.
I have nothing in writing.
I have nothing in writing. But I have the responsibility of these kids. These kids are coming to school for me, to play here with me, for me at this university. That's a tough spot to be in. And I don't know if that, again, that's pure speculation, but
I think it's safe to say that that's what you have. I'm sure there's some more things happening behind closed doors, but if you just read and you're not close to the alumni, you're not close to the trustee board or the athletics scene, you can just tell that there's a back and forth going between, AD Sykes and that board. And it's just not a good look. But I got you round up. Let me give some people some, Cedric Smith is in the house. Edwin Moore, how you doing? Remember, that's what happened at Texas Southern. You are absolutely, I just brought that up. And then you said, Big Mike, they talking about you, man. They say you're getting hot. That you getting fired up.
Look, you haven't seen it. Wait till tomorrow. Wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going ham. I may be all red tomorrow. I'm just telling you, it's gonna be ridiculous.
Edwin Ward says professionals acting all petty or sour kids on the playground. The internet's undefeated. So I guess this is the point. We take a little break. I think we've gone into some discussion. Let's take this break and let's come back into it. We'll get some closing comments on that and move on to another coaching situation that'll be really interesting. So let's take. I used to say 2 and 2, but let's take however we need to give some folks their due and come back in about a minute and a half.
Since 2002, Empowerment Resources, Inc., a nonprofit organization, has empowered more than 1,500 youth and adults in Duval and surrounding counties. Through its programs, Journey into Womanhood, Girls Mentoring, Life Skills for Teens, and Parenting Education Coaching. To get involved with programs, volunteer, or donate, visit www.empowermentresourcesinc.org. Follow us on social media, facebook.com/empowerment.resources and instagram.com/empowermentJAX.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
Nope. Nope.
Come on, him?
Ooh, I like him.
Quick, the quicker picker-upper. Bounty picks up message quicker, and each sheet is 2 times more absorbent, so you can use less.
He's an 8.
He's a 9.
Bounty, the quicker picker-upper.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
Compress the analytic data with your hip hop. If you know them like I know them, they gon' tell you if your team, if they wanna lose, and who the ball. So listen to Professor, yes sir, and pay attention, cause he gon' teach a lesson.
All right, welcome back, listeners, to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with my man Brian Buford and myself, Big Mike, at the helm today. Had a lively chat, about this business of the head coach at FAMU, and it's really bigger than that. There was a couple of comments about AD Sykes, her pushback, her pass that are coming through on the chat line, and I know, Brian, that you're a lot closer to the situation than I am. So, I want to give you due. I know you'll cover it on Orange and Green Strike Zone. You want to give everybody time of the show, because if they want to hear more of that again on BCSN Network.
Yeah, tomorrow night, Wednesday night, right here on the Black College Sports Network. Myself, Kelvin Rozier, Marcus Green, we always get into talking about FAMU athletics, and unfortunately, we will talk about this. We got some other things to get into. We got some football guests coming up in hour 2 of our show, but hour 1 will be, I don't know if we're going to spend the whole hour, but there's a lot of layers to this, sadly, and that's what's really most disappointing. And so that's all out. That's all I can say right now. It really, just in general, it's disappointing for the coach. It's disappointing for the student athletes. it's disappointing for the athletic director because and I'll just leave it there. And you know,
Yep, yep. And at the end of the day, you have folks suffering who need scholarships who came there because of a coach. They're in limbo. Coaches in limbo, and you pretty much there's a saying in the middle: you don't leave your leadership hanging, and you've left AD Sykes, who went out, recruited, did her job, and is left hanging. That's there are bigger issues than just not fulfilling not signing a contract. So, so more to come. Tune in again. Orange and Green Strike Zone. I always mess with him about the Rattlers or whatever, but tremendous show. If you can go check, don't do that ridiculous. Come on now, you just have to do that ridiculous stuff.
That's for you, Mike.
That's going too far.
That's for you.
So, kind of turning the news a little bit. Speaking of coaching, there was a new coaching hire again. I guess you could say, I don't know if it was a surprise to anyone. But those will remember that St. Augustine lost their football program. I believe it was official in April of this year. Well, their coach, Howard Fegans, has kind of recircled and firing. I guess it was a controversial firing, let loose, whatever word you want to put. But now, after leaving St. Augustine and in the midst of that turmoil where they are minus the football program, it was just announced on this past Tuesday that he is the new running backs coach and special teams coordinator at Hampton University, helping out first-year coach Boykins, who's himself kind of a rookie in the position. So, Coach Figgins has a great deal of experience. If you can read and find for yourself, he's a former player in the NFL and the CFL. What is a little bit, I guess, what makes you scratch your head a little bit is there were allegations of alleged abuse back at St. Augustine. I don't think anything formally came out. But there was a lot of question marks in his, not only the departure of the football program, but his departure. Needless to say, here he is back in his position. So I'd be interested to hear if anyone knows any more different, because that's an interesting hire. Usually you do your due diligence and you go back. Was there any turmoil? Because he had, they had lawsuits against St. Augustine, alleging forced silence, alleging intimidation by the university. So there were 3 or 4 different groups. There was the coach, there was some of the alumni, there was then the university itself. So in the midst of losing a program, you have all this turmoil. He's at the center, and he circles back into a coach. So any thoughts on that, Brian?
What's interesting for Hampton now, again, I didn't look too deep into, I don't know the relationship with now first year head coach Trent Boykins, who took over the job at Hampton for, I believe it was it Robert Prunty or Prunty was the coach who was actually let go at the end of April. So right before the transfer portal closed, I believe, the portal closed right at the end of the May. He was let go, right? That was surprising. And so now you have a new coach. And so, but you're also bringing in Feggins. Who knows? Maybe he and Feggins have a good relationship. I got to imagine they do, because it's stated, as I'm reading here, the article in HBCU Sports, that, he's going to be helping, obviously helping first-year head coach Trent Boykin. So here's a coach who's got a little bit of head coaching experience, some NFL playing experience, CFL playing experience, coming in to help out Boykins, who I believe he's even on an interim basis. I don't think Boykins is a full-time. He's auditioning potentially for the job. You know what? You know how bad that can be, Mike. If you don't end
Yes.
up, if it doesn't go well, guess who might
Exactly.
be in the running for this
Exactly.
job? So there's got to be a lot of security. I've heard that coaches can be insecure at times, sometimes, but there's got to be a lot of security and comfortability between these two men for this situation to really work at the betterment of this Hampton team. Who, by the way, Mike, I really like some of the pieces that Hampton has. And starting with their quarterback, who I think may be one of the best quarterbacks in Black college football, might even be one of the best quarterbacks in the CAA. And then they got a very good running back over there. So Hampton's got some pieces. How the coach makes all that work, that's to be determined, right? But those were just that was just a couple of things that struck me. I look past all the allegations and the stuff in the past because so many things were dysfunctional at St. Aug. It looks like that I don't know who to believe. I don't know what is real, and the fact that you have dissolved or suspended your football program, I think that's pretty telling.
Well, yeah, 30 million in the hole. I think that was the estimate to bring the program back. If you look at all the facilities and all of the equipment, of course, that always comes to mind. But there were a couple, $50,000 lawsuits here, $20,000 lawsuits there. So a lot of turmoil. I, like you, think that when you bring a coach like that, and they're running back or whatever, you're gearing them for typically two things. Now, this is not the actual fact. This is what Mike Washington thinks based on what I've seen and observed. You're either bringing them to bolster a serious weakness, or that may be the coach in running. We will wait to see. I just thought it was an interesting hire. And then you talk about. I think you were talking. Is it Malcolm Mays? Is that who you're? The quarterback for Hampton.
Oh no, Chris Zealous is the
Chris Zealous.
Yeah, Zealous. The running back's name escapes me, but I know Zealous is the quarterback for Hampton, who last year I thought had a really good year. He actually, right after they were on a bit of a hot streak, he got hurt for a few games, and it kind of threw their season off right in the middle of the season, I thought. But first half of the season, I thought it was promising, man. I think somebody might have even voted them like in the top 5 or top 3 in some polls.
That was Dr. Cavil's poll. That wasn't Mike. They didn't listen to me. That was probably Dr. Cavil's poll. So,
I know somebody who might have voted him. I know somebody who might have been pretty high on Hampton after the first month of the season. I might have known somebody.
No, but you're absolutely right. I'm kind of looking at the next. Yeah, Chris Zealous had a heck of a first 4 or 5 games, and he came out the blocks walk, and he was at the head of a lot of conversations. So, like you said, Hampton does have a lot to build on. So, look for them to come out in the past. I'd be interested to how that coaching dynamic is going to work as well. Mm-hmm. So, but congratulations, nevertheless, to Coach Howard Feggins on his new position, and we certainly wish Hampton the best. So, kind of moving on. So, guess who announced their lineup for Football Media Day? You want to take a guess?
Oh, everybody's favorite conference.
Yes. So I don't know if any surprises come out of out of the of course, I think the MEAC Media Day is July 10th, I believe.
MEAC is actually July 23rd.
23rd, okay.
Yeah.
So yes, they have announced their Media Day, July 16th, 10 a.m. the year our Lord in the royal city of Sharon, Birmingham. So a couple of things that announced. If you'll see A&M, everybody's announced their 2 players who's coming. Donovan England from the running back from A&M, Amari Pate, the DB. This one is a little weird to a lot of Texans. Andrew Body, quarterback for Alabama State, now is going to be there. Wasn't long that he was there for Texas Southern, so kind of a little bit of weird feeling there. James Burgess, of course, DB, Alabama State. Alcorn State, of course, they're going to have Tavares Griffin, tight end, and Malachi Bailey, which is a D lineman. Bethune-Cookman will have Raymond Woody III, DB, and Travaris Hammond, offensive lineman. And then FAM, your precious Rattlers, bring Kendall Bowler, defensive back, and Kelvin Dean Jr., the running back. Grambling State will be
SWAC guys.
Who is that?
I was saying Bowler and Dean, 2 first-team All-SWAC guys.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for that. And then Grambling has Miles Crawley, quarterback, Quentin Talley, DB, and then Jackson State, people wonder what they're going to do. Esaias Guthrie, defensive back, Evan Henry, who's an offensive lineman, Valley, Mississippi Valley, Carrick Ross, who's a wide receiver, and Jordan Busey, who's a defensive lineman. And then those Panthers down on D Hill will bring CJ Presley, defensive end, and that tremendous wide receiver, Shamar Savage. Rounding out the list, Southern will bring Chandler Whitfield, wide receivers, Kelby Gibbons, defensive end. And then Texas Southern will bring Jacob Williams, linebacker, Mehdi Torrance, offensive lineman. And then UAPB will bring Elijah Jenkins, who's a defensive end, and Damon Watkins, wide receiver. If you do the math, there's a lot of offensive and defensive linemen and wide receivers on there. Typically, you have a lot of quarterbacks. That was the first thing I noted. Is there a reason for that? I can tell you my thoughts, but I think there are only 2 quarterbacks that are representing their teams. So that tells me that the quarterback hunt in the SWAC is real.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I'm right there with you. I think it is telling. Crawley played. Now, is this up for? I don't know. This isn't up for much debate. Crawley was at Grambling last year, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think he started the entire season. How much of the season did Crawley start last year?
No, I gotta go. I don't want to spout numbers in that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would guess maybe the bottom half of the season, maybe the last third of the season, maybe. But there's only one program that has a returning head coach and quarterback.
Yes,
that's Jackson State.
It's Jackson State.
So yes, you have Andrew Body, but new program. Okay. Miles Crawley's got a new coach this year. So yeah, I think it says something about maybe the uncertainty about the quarterback position that you don't see the quarterbacks here. So that's going to be interesting to kind of pay attention to. You take it for what it's worth, but that's what everyone's going to be asking. Every coach who doesn't have their quarterback there, you're gonna be asking, who is the quarterback? What's the quarterback race looking like? Which one of the 2 guys? Some schools will have quarterback battles going into the fall.
Yep.
All of those will be questions that people will be asking, no doubt.
Yeah, and there'll be. I think we've hit it. I think there'll be a lot of parity in the SWAC. I think you can. If there's any prediction, that's safe to say there'll be a lot of parity. And the fact that you have a lot of quarterback hunts that'll be hot, and I mean hot, says a lot. So that was my one takeaway from that. Of course, Dr. Cavil, Charles Bishop will be there. I am supposed to be there if I don't get any, if I get cancellations job wise, but I look forward to seeing it. I look forward to seeing kind of the attitude there. Just early prognosis. I want to see some of the attitudes going into the season. So
I think the one thing that I'm going to be trying to pay attention and track, Mike, is try to get a real sense of how many returning starters each team has, how many returning offensive, defensive players, and then kind of juxtaposing that with how many guys have their quarterbacks coming back. How many programs know what their quarterback is going to look like on game one? Obviously you get a sense there's two, Grambling and Texas Southern.
Yep.
Probably Jackson State, I got to imagine. I mean, but I don't know. Everybody else is up in the air. So those are some of the things that I'm gonna be looking forward to tracking down and finding out at SWAC Media Day.
Yep, agreed. And then I don't have the list for the MEAC, but what are your thoughts? I guess early thoughts going into the MEAC. Is it the same?
Ooh, if I'm trying to recall the quarterbacks, obviously Davius Richard was your standout quarterback. Howard's quarterback, he's gone. Howard's quarterback's gone.
Yep.
South Carolina State has a new quarterback, but he's a familiar quarterback, probably if they go with Eric Phoenix with the head coach, new coach, of course, Janice Berry. I think I've heard Morgan State's quarterback is a returner, but I don't know if he was necessarily a dynamic, passer, to say the least. And I mean, those are the four elite teams. Norfolk State should have a new quarterback, but really there's three teams that I think will get first place votes, and that's Howard, Central, and I think Morgan State will get some first place votes. But the team that'll be in that top 3 or 4 will be South Carolina State, because I think people have that kind of respect for Chennis Berry.
Yep.
And I think just off that alone, that will get maybe South Carolina State into like the top 3 in terms of predicted order of finish.
Oh, I agree. I think they're also you look at the first half of 2023 and the second half, their defense stepped up. And if they can bring, I'd say half, 2/3 of that defense there, I think they'll garner a lot more of those votes than people think they will. So I look for a lot more from South Carolina State than people may give credit for. And I'll leave it there. Kind of looking at the top of the clock, there's one more issue I wanted to, I don't want to call it an issue. No, another coaching or loss of. So it is down in the valley. So
we talking about Valley? We talking about Valley?
We talking about Valley? So Valley. So Hakeem McClellan is leaving the post, the AD post. There's a couple of things saying it was, just time. I think he was there 2.5 years. And there were some as much stuff as I talk about Valley, there were some great changes. Heck, they kept Prairie View. They knocked them out twice. And Prairie View still represented the West in the SWAC championship. So I can't talk about them much. But you want to know, who will be announced, as his replacement. Was it time? Is he going back to? I've heard some thoughts that he's going back to Jackson State. Maybe not. So who knows? But I think that's a big loss, because I will say this: the changes he's brought, the defense and the mentality of Mississippi Valley, despite what their record may be, has been very positive. And I think he has a lot to say into that. So I think that's a significant loss, more so than what people are trying to say. So, just your thoughts on that?
Well, as I'm looking at a tweet from the Delta Sports, they say that he's stepping down after 2 years to reunite with Jackson State as deputy athletic director. His last day will be on June 30th. But, the Delta Devils have made some upgrades to their field with
Yep.
fields, so we can no longer make fun of Mississippi Valley State when we look on their looking at the TV and wonder why the grass is so green. We can or so brown. We can no longer make jokes. They made upgrades to the video board. Apparently, they've
Yeah, the video board. I
there's
mean,
a
a
new
lot
logo.
happening in little old itty bitty minute Mississippi. There's a lot happening.
Look, yeah, there's a new logo. I don't know if you see. Look, I saw this. Look, I cannot be. My Christian heart won't let me. Go rah rah for the devil. But man, the new devil logo looks pretty tough. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, and so I say that in jest, but they got so there's a lot of you talk about leaving your mark, leaving a place better than when you arrived. And so who knows if we'll ever get all the juicy tea as to
Yep.
why he's leaving after 2 years. But I think he's done a lot and overseen a lot, probably with very little to work with. So, it's a
Yeah.
big gain for Jackson State. And look, hey, there could be some athletic director positions open in the next year or two in the SWAC. So I mean, look, well, I mean, I know of one particular program that's still looking for a full-time athletic director right there in the state of Mississippi.
Absolutely.
So
I know somebody's going to come in and benefit off of some of the improvements he's brought in. I mean, you can't deny some of the improvements under his reign. So his resume is in full. You can't deny it. So I agree with Brandon King, who's on the chat line, and says that Valley is going to really feel losing it. I agree with you 100%. So thank you, Brandon. So we're at the end of it, and this hour has kind of gone by fast. But I want to thank you, Brian, for deciding to join me. I didn't give you the most notice, but I want to thank you anyway for agreeing to join with me and humor me a little bit. I want to thank Dr. Cavil for allowing me the opportunity to at least play host. So so all things said, anything closing before we jump off that you want to?
Just yeah, time flies when you're having fun, Mike. I'm not, so I enjoy being on here with you and want to encourage everybody, come check us out tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, the ONG Strike Zone right here on the Black College Sports Network. That is, if you want more info about Florida A&M University in depth, then come join us tomorrow night.
All right. Thanks, Brian. Absolutely. And look for more in the fall. 1876 Sports and Culture, the startup, coming to a podcast and a YouTube television show near you to bring you the latest and greatest on Prairie View A&M sports, culture, politics, and university news. So having said that, I'm out, folks. Thank you for listening to Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Make sure you share our podcast with all your friends and family. I am not Dr. Cavil. I am Big Mike Washington, filling in for Dr. Cavil and Big Charles Bishop. So with my good friend Brian Buford from ONG Strike Zone, thank you for listening for Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. Every Tuesday, Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, and Sundays during football season at 9 a.m. We look forward to next week as we discuss the latest in the lab. Thank you. And we're going to try to do it. Course.
Lecture.
Dismissed.
Dismissed.